Racing to the finish line of the 2024 election, MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives are going to have every hearing they can to try to help Donald Trump. It's quite embarrassing. But Democrats, this new group of Democrats that is going on the offense and calling them out, led by people like Congressmember Moskowitz, who calls them out to their faces at these hearings. Take a look at what just went down at the Oversight Committee hearing. Take a look at Congressmember Moskowitz to the chair of the committee, MAGA Republican James Comer. Play the clip.
But, you know, the name of this committee today is Failures and Incompetencies. So let's talk about the big Knish, right? The chairman's failed impeachment. Let's remember, we misplaced an informant over a year ago, couldn't find him, didn't know where he went. Another informant was indicted for providing false information that came from Russian intelligence. We used a second informant who was turned out to be an indicted Chinese foreign agent. And to top it off, the chairman was like, who could we find to make it even better? Maybe we can get someone to testify from prison, which actually we did here on Zoom. Here is the chairman's 300-page book report on impeachment. He said in his release, it is the strongest case for impeachment of a sitting president the House of Representatives has ever investigated. Wow, that sounds pretty serious. So I want the chairman to show the American people that we didn't just waste millions of taxpayer dollars to issue this book report. Mr. Chairman, the speaker is watching. You could call for impeachment right now, right? We got a little bit of time left before the election. I mean, you know, just ask the speaker. You could ask the speaker right now, or talk to him. Like, when are we going to schedule impeachment? Or is this just concepts of impeachment? Right? No? Okay. Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Then Democratic Congressmember Jared Moskowitz points out that the MAGA Republicans at this oversight committee even won up Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. They actually called a witness in who not only was saying that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs, but they brought someone in who was advocating that the Haitians should have been enslaved for longer periods of time. Play the clip.
Yes. I mean, literally 2 weeks ago, right, all we heard was about what the Haitian people were doing in Springfield. But no, the chairman wanted to top that. He literally brought a witness who proffered in this committee that the Haitian people would have been better off had they stayed in slavery for several more decades. Mr. Chairman, I want to spare you the embarrassment. You should strike his words from the record. No, you stand by his comment that the Haitian people would have been better off in slavery for 30 more years? Or should we strike that from the record? I just want to spare you that embarrassment. Okay, so the chairman—
All right, your time's expired.
Then you have Democratic Congressmember Maxwell Frost point out that the MAGA Republicans are planning to hold hearings now on Governor Walz to try to attack him on behalf of Donald Trump. Play this clip.
This committee functions as an extension of the Trump campaign. First, we went after President Biden with a nonsense impeachment hearing. Then we went after his son. Now we're going after the vice president because she's the nominee. And my question is, Mr. Chairman, are we going after Tim Walz next week? Because I hear from my staff that you're planning a hearing on Governor Tim Walz, even though he's been governor for 5 years and his name hasn't been uttered in this room or in this committee until something happened recently. Oh, yes, he became the vice presidential nominee. Is he next?
His son's going to jail.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about Governor Tim Walz.
Okay.
Are we doing a hearing on him next week?
I'll have to check.
You'll have to check. Okay. We'll see what happens next week. Someone whose name has not been uttered in this committee, but now that he's the Democratic vice presidential nominee, we're going to do a hearing on him. A complete blatant use of official resources for a political campaign is what this committee has been. And anyone who's taking part in that should be ashamed of themselves.
And then you have MAGA Republican James Comer accuse Democratic Congressmember Jared Moskowitz of being on medication, but watch how Moskowitz throws it right back in his face. Play the clip.
Mr. Chairman, I'll begin by pointing out that Hunter Biden is going to be sentenced on December 16th.
Hunter Biden's not the president.
I bet you money he's going
to— you need to take your medication and leave. Chair recognizes Mr. Timmons.
Mr. Chairman, you're several decades older than me. We know who's taking more medication.
All right.
AOC was on fire during this hearing, pointing out that MAGA Republicans can't even point out countries like Venezuela, Haiti, Guatemala, Nicaragua out on maps. Here, play this clip.
Days like today are really deeply felt. I'm going to speak briefly as the highest ranking Latino or Latina on this committee. We hear a lot of rhetoric on both sides about the issue of immigration. And it is precisely because it is seen as a border issue that millions of people suffer over and over and over again. It does matter that Vice President Harris was not the quote unquote border czar. And let me explain to you why. Because what Vice President Harris has been tasked with under President Biden's administration is addressing the root causes of immigration. Once you have millions of people at the southern border of the United States, you've lost. We need to understand why people are coming to the southern border of the United States and mitigating that in the first place. And frankly, when we turn the page and look at what happened in the Trump administration, we have to see where folks are coming from. And I am tired of hearing from people who cannot point out Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala on a map, telling us about how to mitigate the millions of people seeking refuge. We should be eliminating the reasons why people are seeking refuge in the first place. Under the Trump administration, Donald Trump participated in what we saw in Venezuela and many of the regime change activities that were happening there. And what we saw most desperately are the horrific sanctions that were placed not targeting specifically the Maduro regime, but the Venezuelan people, innocent Venezuelan people that are being starved of food and basic resources. That is what is contributing to a destabilizing environment and part of what they are fleeing. And that is not to conflate the Venezuelan people with the Maduro regime. Because
then AOC talks about facts, and the facts are, what are the root causes of immigration issues? And yes, it's Republican policies. They're the arsonists. Here, play this clip.
Donald Trump participated in what we saw in Venezuela and many of the regime change activities that were happening there. And what we saw most desperately are the horrific sanctions that were placed not targeting specifically the Maduro regime, but the Venezuelan people, innocent Venezuelan people that are being starved of food and basic resources. That is what is contributing to a destabilizing environment and part of what they are fleeing. And that is not to conflate the Venezuelan people with the Maduro regime, because I oppose the anti-democratic measures in which even just recently in the election, Maduro's refusal to make public the results of a free and fair election. You want to know how else Republicans have contributed to the immigration crisis? Marco Rubio has been sitting and sat and stalled and delayed key ambassadorial appointments of the United States across the world. I myself led a congressional delegation to Latin America and sat across in the Colombian embassy where we had an acting ambassador because Marco Rubio refuses to allow U.S. diplomacy to proceed. You tell me what is destabilizing. What is destabilizing? People have no idea. Legislators who are claiming to understand the issue of immigration don't have the slightest clue as to what is happening in Latin America while supporting the very policies that are driving people to here in desperation in the first place. So don't talk to me about how Republicans have an answer to the issue of immigration.
Jasmine Crockett, also on fire, Democratic Congresswoman, friend of the MeidasTouch Network. Here she is calling out the MAGA Republicans. Play this clip.
You know what? This hearing is actually the best example of what waste, fraud, and abuse looks like, because the only reason we're having this hearing is because somebody got their feelings hurt in a debate. And I don't understand why we're wasting taxpayer dollars. Next time, tell your big boy to show up and be ready to handle the woman in the room who hopefully will become the next president of the United States.
Remember earlier in this video where Democratic Congressmember Jared Moskowitz was pointing out how one of the witnesses that the MAGA Republicans called said that the Haitians should have been enslaved longer for their own well-being. It was this moment where Democratic Congressmember Kazar called them out for it. Democratic Congressmember Greg Kazar is from Texas. Here, watch this.
Where you said, quote, Haiti is so screwed up because it wasn't colonized long enough, end quote. Is that correct? Did you say that?
I'm happy to talk about that all you want.
You did say it. That's
I wrote
right.
It, yes.
You said that. Haiti was colonized as a slave plantation colony. The French colonized Haiti so that slaves would work on plantations. The end of colonization in Haiti was so that the people there would no longer be slaves. So what you're saying, and I read your quote, and anybody watching this online should go read it. What you're saying is it would have been good if they'd stayed colonized, which means that it would have been good if they had stayed enslaved by the French.
In the long run, it's one of the
in the long run,
history. No,
people shouldn't have been enslaved a single day. I'm reclaiming my time, Chairman.
And they had every right. They had every right to throw the.
What
French
you said
out.
is that you would have wanted them. Reclaiming my time. I'm talking now.
They would have been freed 30 years later. You said and they would have been in the same situation.
You were saying you wanted 30 more years of slavery in Haiti. Reclaiming my time.
I did.
You just said it. Honestly, it adds up. You said that they would have benefited from the French influence.
In
the French were the ones,
like the people in Martinique and
reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. I'd like my time back, please.
Enslaved.
My time. This is my time, Mr. Corkorian.
They are much better off.
Honestly, this all starts to add up. Before today, I couldn't understand why Trump's Project 2025 could advocate for ending civil rights protections. Why would Trump's Project 2025, I know there's crazy stuff in here, but I couldn't get why it would advocate for ending protections against discrimination. But now I understand. We have Project 2025 board members here who are the directors of groups that the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated as a hate group. We have people that are on the board that developed this who have said, for example, that Haitians would have been better off with more influence from their enslavers.
Now, if you want to see what the MAGAs are doing, this is what Marjorie Tor Green was doing. Play this clip.
Thank you. This is such an important hearing today, talking about terrorism. The definition of terror is a feeling of extreme fear. And it's a very sad day that we live in, that many Americans are living with a feeling of extreme fear.
Here's another clip here of Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Play this clip.
Programs have seen limited success because many companies who committed to providing broadband went into default after radically underestimating their cost. It doesn't say anything about diversity. And the final thing that I will say is that this election, I didn't ask you a question. The final thing that I will say is that this election is the best example of why y'all are so afraid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because then you can't have a simple-minded, underqualified white man somehow end up ascending. Instead, you've got to pay attention to the qualified Black woman that is on the other side. And with that, I will yield.
Here's one more clip of AOC. Let's play it.
So you believe, do you believe in the Trump administration when Donald Trump raised selling the island of Puerto Rico?
I don't even remember that one.
Oh, you don't remember when Donald Trump?
I haven't heard of that.
I mean, I suppose that puts.
I'm sure who he'd sell it to, but I don't know. I mean, sure.
Yeah, I suppose that puts you and Nikki Jam and Anuel in the same boat.
And Democratic Congressmember Dan Goldman pointing out that there would be a bipartisan immigration deal, but the MAGA Republicans killed the bill. Play that clip.
And let me just say something about the asylum process, because there's a lot of talk about legal immigration and illegal immigration. Asylum is legal immigration. It is not illegal immigration. It is part of our laws that you may seek asylum under certain circumstances. The problem we have at the border and the problem we have with our asylum process is that only 20 to 25% of people who apply for asylum ultimately get asylum. But it takes 7 to 10 years for that process to play out. This border security bill would have dramatically shortened the asylum process such that it would be over in 6 months. And the incentive for someone who knows that they do not qualify for asylum to come across the border would be eliminated. And many of those 75 to 80% of people who are not eligible for asylum would not come here and would not be granted work permits.
Love that these MAGA Republicans are just getting fried by the Democrats. They're not getting away with their usual stuff, and these new Democratic Congress members are just calling them out day in, day out, and you can see it right there for yourself. And I'll show you this one here. Democratic Congresswoman Ramirez pointing out that MAGA Republicans don't even understand the most basic concepts. Play this clip.
Secondly, and it's almost embarrassing that I have to educate and explain to members of Congress and a former president, but when someone says that they're seeking asylum and they're coming to the United States seeking asylum, that doesn't mean that they're literally coming from a mental institution. Third, as my friend Congressman Garcia pointed out yesterday, Republicans and former President Trump, they don't even know when Trump left office. This chart says that he left April 2020. Trump actually left office in January of 2021 when the numbers were rising and higher, actually even higher than during Obama's second term. Fourth, let's just keep going on this chart. The chart itself shows that when Trump came into office, the numbers actually began rising. The dip in numbers where Trump claims he left office is actually April 2020 at the height of the early COVID-19 pandemic, when folks, migration numbers were dropped globally. I know it's hard for you to see because you've been reading this and now you're finally realizing, oh my God, I've been saying lies. Trump was in office for another 9 months and those numbers actually were climbing.
Yeah, I wanted to show you that one. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers together. Thanks.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.